I think we can start the session. Yes. Please hold on. Okay. This is a session on generative AI on AWS services. Generative AI is getting a trending topic out these days, and we are going to discuss and understand what this generative AI is, and then once we get some familiarity about the generative AI and its applications, then we will look into some of the specific services by Amazon AWS which can help you to build generative AI applications. So the initial part of the session will be consist of some theories, and as we proceed we will be having a live demo as well. The recording of the session will also be available, so feel free to watch it at any time. A bit of background about myself before starting into the session. So myself, I'm a programmer from Thiruvananthapuram, Kerala state, and I have a work experience with different cloud technologies like Azure, AWS. I'm an AWS community builder as well. In addition to that, I do have a meetup group which is called the Coding Talks Cloud Computing. Feel free to register this group, and there will be sessions, upcoming sessions related to cloud coming like this. And also I do have a YouTube channel where you will be watching this session, and also there is a podcast as well which consists of a lot of sessions which deals with the cloud and also some of the front-end technologies and back-end technologies related to the Microsoft domain and Azure, and also about the AWS as well. So feel free to listen and watch those sessions, and thank you once again. Thank you for tuning into the session, and we can start the slides anyway. So at any time of the session, if you feel any doubt or anything, feel free to ask that in the live chat session. I will be checking it occasionally, and then I will be updating the details, and also the links that I will be presenting through this session. Once after the session, I will be capturing all the links that I presented through the session, and then that will be updated on the channel, so that on the description section, so that in case if you want to try it out, you can have that. So with that, we can start the session. Let me open my slides. Okay, fine. Okay. Okay, as you know, this generative AI is an trending topic out these days. Many of you are familiar with the term generative AI, or maybe some of you already aware of the concepts of ChatGPT and its popularity. So keep in mind that ChatGPT is just one of the applications of this generative AI. Generative AI was quite existing from quite long, and the organizations like Amazon and others are quite using that internally as well. we will understand what it is, this generative AI, and the one of the way by which users can interact with the generative AI is through a chat mode, and there what the chat GPT became more popular nowadays. So it's not just about the chat GPT, there is nothing much more than that. Generative AI can help you to take decisions. So decisions is always helpful for every organizations. Whether it's a human decision or if it's a machine decision, it's beneficial to the organization. So just like humans, machines can also sometimes take decisions. They do have some intelligence, and that capability has evolved through this generative AI, and it's also an emerging trend. So more intelligence will be coming in the upcoming days, we can hope. So as of now, the evolution till now we will be discussing in this session, and we can go to the next slide. So I hope you can see some of the images that in the screen. These images are actually generated through the Amazon SageMaker diffusion models, which is a generative AI model. At this time, you may be wondering what is this Amazon SageMaker and what is this stable diffusion model and all, but that doesn't matter. Just understood that these images are actually not real images. These are all generated through the SageMaker stable diffusion models, and these images are actually generated from text. That means if I mention, so you can check on that middle image where a dog is wearing a hat. So if I mention like I want an image with a dog with a hat, it will generate, the machine will generate on the fly. So that's capability is called the diffusion. So that also we will understand as we go through the session. So there are different capabilities. So the generative AI, we are familiar with the concept of the chat GPT and all. So that's one way of interacting with the generative AI. Similar way, generative AI can generate contents. It can generate contents from a massive set of content. It can summarize. It can interact with you as just like a human interact, and also it can take decisions. It can generate media, it can generate images like as you see in the screen, and also it can do many other applications are there. It can diagnostics some of the logs and can take decisions. So lot of use cases are there that are applicable to generative AI. So we can come to that there later. So first, a quick understanding about what is generative AI and a history behind the generative AI, and then we can understand more about it. From the slide, you can see that the generative AI is a branch of AI that focuses on creating new data. This means that this generative AI technology can understand the existing data, and it can select the most appropriate data and can generate new data. So it's a subset of machine learning. So its goal is to create new data. So we will train the generative AI mechanism with some existing data. It consists of training data as well as a lot of other data as well. We can inject different data there, and the machine is quite intelligent, and it can capable of understanding these different data, and it can study that. So the more it study, the better it can perform. So if you interact with the chat GPT, you can understand that after some time of interaction with that, it can mimic exactly like a human way. So the more you interact with them, the more you can learn. So it's quite similar to the way by which we humans understand the things around us. So initially we may not be familiar with much of the surroundings, and then as we progress, we understood a lot of things around us, and then our intelligence and other things also evolve. So similar way, that same way, this generative AI can understand the context and the data, and it can select the best data and can create new data. It's not about selecting the best data, it creates a set of new data which is nearly similar to the data that was used to train the model. That's one of the advantage. So it's just like an inspiration way. So hope you know, artist gets inspiration from other data and they create a new data. So similar way generative AI can also generate. So it's a kind of a intelligent way that machine mechanism is generating. Okay, so the next slide is about the agenda of this session. We will be talking a bit about the generative AI, the history of generative AI, and then we understand about the language models. So language models are simply the output of this generative AI. So language models are simply a kind of an output of these machine learning algorithms, and generative AI uses these language model to generate new contents. So language model is the underlying mechanism, and language models is the essence of machine learning algorithms. So machine learning algorithms understood and study a lot about the context and surrounding data, and then it will generate the final essence of that is the language model. It is also called as foundation models, and this generative AI mechanism use these underlying foundation model. One of the special characteristics about this language model or the foundation model is that these are very specific or specialized models which are relatively smaller in size. It has size, but it's because these are specialized, they are comparatively much smaller than the other machine language model, and the capability of these models also is very high, so that it can do a vast variety of use cases like the text summarizing, text generation, interaction, content creation, and many more. Then in the initial slide you saw about a few images. Those were created out of text, and we will be going to understand the concept about how it is actually generating that text to image models. So it's called the diffusion models. We will be looking into that as well. Then we will look into some of the concept called the prompt engineering. Prompt engineering is a way by which you will instruct the machine what you want. For example, if you want to write some blog, you can ask this generative AI, like, I need a blog with a particular technology topic that can span from around 100 to 150 words. And you can also mention some of the context as well. So these are the data inputs. These generative AI also has the underlying foundation models as well. So combining these two, the inputs from yourself as well as the foundation model, it can generate a new content. So that's called the prompt engineering. Then once you understand these basic concepts, then we will look into some of the services of Amazon AWS, which can help you to use this generative AI for your own application or for enterprise application. So the contents that I mentioned through this session are mostly applicable for enterprise concepts, and all the opinions that I present through this session are purely my personal opinion and do not represent any of the employers or anyone's view in any matter. So the underlying idea is that using the generative AI, we can help the business. So just like IT helps business to do its function in a better way, the generative AI can help the IT to function in a more better way. And we will also look into some of the specifics. So demo will be there. So please hold on, and the recording is also available, so you can watch the recording later as well. So demo will be based on two different services of Amazon, which is called the Amazon SageMaker, as well as we will also talk about an evolving service called Amazon Bedrock as well. So now before we understand all these things, let's recap a little bit about the evolution of generative AI. So that's the next slide. So this is the road to generative AI. So initially, as we understood, organizations need is driven by decision making, and it's driven by data. So from the data, they need to take decisions. So it can be human decisions or can be machine decisions. So initially, the evolution is like this. So we do have a set of different conditions or business decisions, and the applications should make the best decision out of that. And how it was doing that is through a combination of a conditional statement. So those of you are who have an idea about the programming, or even if you are a business analyst or some other person who don't directly dealt with the programming language, still you can understand the concept of conditional execution, where you can provide a condition in Excel sheet where it's based on data, it will work in a different way. So that's called the conditional execution. Then once it advances, because when the data is getting more and more complex and decisions also needs to be taken in a much rapid way, this conditional execution was not a feasible one, because you need to write a lot of conditional, and that makes the system a bit hard coded way. When there needs a change, you need to change the entire system. So that's how come the idea of word embeddings. Word embeddings means that the system can understand a set of related data, and it can take decisions based on that. So we can move to the next slide. So this is the concept of word embeddings. So the system understands a combination of words, and it can understand the relative words from a set of words. For example, if someone is typing something like dog, and if someone else is searching for cat, it can understand that both are animals because it has some certain set of specific characteristics. It differs, but still it's comparatively relative. And the system can also understand, like, okay, the car and bus are related, but it's much different from the dog and cat. So this way it's kind of a 2D way representation of data exists there. And this way a lot of data means when the system wants to learn a lot of things, then it can tokenize all the different data, and it can represent that in a form of kind of a 2D space, and that is what you can see here. So somewhat related contents comes closer, while a bit different things comes a bit far away from there, and that way the system can understand. So the idea is like this kind of word embedding systems can provide recommendation systems in the early days. Then the concept of language models evolved. So this is based on the word embeddings. This is different from the foundation model which we are going to discuss. This is the earliest state of language models that are available. Then from this set of different words came the word to vec functionality, and from there the natural language processing has evolved. So a few years back, I think around 5 or 6 years back, the concept of chatbots and also the concept of Alexa came into being there. So the idea is that when you provide a sentence or something to those kind of systems, it can understand the intent of the requested person. So if you say Alexa to turn off music or turn on music, it can understand from that word what the person intended, and then it can take a decision. And the decision in that case is to start or stop the music. So similar way, based on a set of words, tokenized words, and a database of words, it can take decisions. So that's called the natural language processing. And when natural language processing further evolved, that there happened the different other areas as well, like the text summarization. That means if you have a large set of paragraphs, these natural language processing can further summarize the data. Then question answering sessions, similar to the chatbot feature, where someone is asking the system about something, and it can understand the related words. Just like we saw earlier, the set of related words can be represented in a 2D dimensional space, and in the form of x and y axis, and from there the system can understand what the person is asking, and based on that it can answer a question. It can also analyze the sentiment analysis. So if you know about the cognitive services that are available in cloud, it can understand from a image or from a set of words whether it is a positive words or it has a specific mood related to that word. it can analyze the sentiments, or it can also analyze from a text what the particular mood of that person is. So sentiment analysis was there. Then speech language understanding feature, that is also the translation and all kind of things, that also was there. So these are the one of the main visible action or main famous applications of this is the Alexa. You hope you all know, and also there are many other applications as well. So these are some of the natural language processing applications where the system can understand what the person intended. So the one thing you can understand here is that these systems can understand what you mention and it can take an action, but it's not that much intelligent, because when we go through the next slide you can understand that. So when it comes to the next word prediction, for example, imagine if you are asking the system what are some of the pre-words that are that comes before the lazy. So the system is very difficult to understand that, because there can be a lazy person or there can be a lazy something. So next word prediction with the simple word embedding was not that much powerful. It worked, but it was not that much powerful. Then came the concept of a new prediction model, which is called the recurrent neural networks, or RNN. Here it can predict the pre-words in a much better fashion based on the context of the different words. One of the main problem that this RNN has is like it can predict, but it consumes a lot of memory. So it keeps everything in memory and the context of these words, so that it can predict to some extent, but it's not that much effective. So we are discussing about some of the pre-approaches that existed before the chat GPT or the transformer technology. We will be coming to the transformer technology now. So the next evolution is the it's called the transformer technology. One second. So this is the transformers technology. So this is mentioned on a paper in 2017, I believe. Yeah, 2017. So in this paper, a new concept is introduced. That means it's a bit advanced of that RRN, where from a set of words, the system can give an attention to a particular word, and it can identify the best accurate word, and it can predict the next one. So the current GPT models are using this technology, transformers technology. So this is just similar to the way by which our neural mechanisms work. So we understood a lot of the things around us, and we can take a decision based on that data that we have in our brain. So because there we are giving a particular attention to a particular thing, and we can understand which one we need to select. So that same concept is what used here in this transformers as well. So attention is the key thing here, and this is an flow chart of how these transformers works. You don't need to go too much deep into how it is working at all, because just keep in mind that currently the GPT models are based on transformers, and the main highlight of these models are that it can these attention enabled models to scale the understanding that relationship between the different words. So that means if you provide these models a list of words or even a set of paragraphs, it can understand the intention or what to predict, what to come next based on those contexts. So two things are important here. One is it gives attention based on the data that is available to those models, and also it has a thing called the parallel computing, where it processes these different context of data in a rapid fashion so that it can get into the attention details. So that means from a huge set of data, it can select the most accurate one. So that is how the transformers networks works, and the GPT models are based on that. So if you know the ChatGPT, if you ask something, the underlying model is actually this transformer model, and so it can understand what you intend better from those context of words. So how it achieves that is through a large set of data, and it uses this parallel computing to efficiently identify which particular area to need focus, so that attention, just like we provide attention to a set of data and select the best one, these transformer based machine models also do the same thing, and it can predict the next word. So this is how the network transformer based networks work. So if you provide these models a sentence like this: the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy, from the data it can understand that there is a person there, there is a rabbit there, but because these networks have the parallel processing capability and also the attention, from out of those data it will select the best accurate word there. So here the right word is dog. So as a human we can select that one because we aware that this is actually a kind of a English language sentence which is quite commonly used. And so the ChatGPT can also, or not ChatGPT, the language model, the transformer based models can understand the behind scenario of that and select the best thing, and it also can understand from which context these words there. So it is suggesting like if you type quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog, it will fill up the missing dog part, and also it can also identify that it is an English language pangram, and it can provide much more details about that sentence. So that's how the transformer based networks works, and current GPT models are based on this transformer based networks. And there are various applications of these transformer based networks or the GPT, and this chat GPT is one of that. And there is another there are another different other things as well. And nowadays we can see, just before I saw a plugin in Photoshop where it based on some of the text, it can replace some of the image areas. So that way generative AI is getting more and more popular nowadays because of these specialized foundation models. So we have understood that there is a model behind this transformer based networks. It's a specialized model. These models are actually called the foundation model, and these are called large language models as well. These are huge data sets. So there is a different subset of this large language model out there which is quite getting popular. These are called as foundation models. So they are nearly same, but foundation models are specialized models which can do some specific sets of data based understanding, and it can provide more accurate prediction. So there are foundation models available for image generation from text, whereas some other foundation models can interact with the user just like a human do. And there are some other language model which can provide the most accurate recommendation system. So different kinds of optimizations are enabled for different kinds of foundation model. The concept of foundation model is getting more popular because instead of having a very large model, this generative AI systems can use those foundations, specialized foundation models which are comparatively smaller, but it can do the processing in a much specialized and effective way, and it is more modular as well. So that's how it is getting evolved. So the current trend is this transformer based networks. Next we are going to see the different applications of these transformer based networks with the generative AI. Generative AI can be think of as like an umbrella of different underlying capabilities of this generative AI. So we can look into those things in the next slides. So this is a chart of the size of these foundation or large LLM models. Initially, the BERT model, which was having 345 million, and the ChatGPT has 1.5 billion, and the GPT-3, which is the upcoming one, have 175 billion, and the Bloom is, which is available from the Amazon, it has 177 billion. So these have different parameter count. So parameter count is a way by which these systems can understand the context of what the user intends. So the more parameters it have and the more size it has, the better decisions it can make. Then, yeah. So we have understood the concept behind generative AI, and the foundation models are the underlying capable elements of these generative AI mechanism. And now we are going to look into some of the applications of these generative AI. So there are many different use cases these generative AI can quite helpful. In the simplest term, if you understand about the chat GPT, it can help you to interact and understand the things in a more better fashion. So that is one area. And similar way, because these generative AI models or the language models can recommend the next things or next words from a context of words using the transformer technology, it is quite helpful for a developer as well. So myself a developer, and there are many other developers like that. So when we actually develop the using some kind of a code editor, there are times where I felt like if it has some inline mechanism to suggest something, it will be quite helpful. So such suggestion, this transformer based GPT models can very effectively do. And one of the example of that is what you are viewing now in the screen. One of the service which Amazon provides called the Code Whisperer. This is actually a generative AI pair coding. So pair coding is a way by which two developers sits together and they will write the code, and one person will be watching the other coding, and then at times he or she can provide some suggestions on what to do, and if some mistake happens they can correct. So that's called the concept of pair programming. And this generative AI can do some sort of pair coding. It can work behind the scene when you type, and it can suggest you the more accurate things, and it can also help you to do better coding. So if you look into some of the existing companies that are using Code Whisperer, they can understand that you can understand that the productivity has increased much, because instead of while we code in the editor, it can provide itself the suggestion. So we don't need to look into some other areas like the documentation or chat GPT or some other Stack Overflow or some other external resources to understand these things. So right there in the editor itself, it can provide suggestions. So that's what you are viewing in the screen now. Like it's a Python code, and someone has commented like hash create. So hash is the comment area, and when they provide a command like hash create NN for image classification, behind the scene this Code Whisperer will understand the context. It will understand the context like the user is currently in VS Code, which is an editor of provided by Microsoft, and also the language, the underlying language which the developer is working on is Python. And also based on the comment which he provide, and not just from the comments, it also from the context of that entire program, the entire file, and even that entire folder itself as well. It will understand what's the context there, and it will provide a suggestion. So in this case, it's pretty straightforward. Like it understood that it should need to create a model, a function for image classification, and it on the spot generates. So how it generates these things is like the same way like earlier we discussed about the transformer model. This foundation, this code whisperer has a foundation model behind the scene, which will understand the based on this context, it will find out the most accurate words. Sometimes it can find a list of accurate words, and the developer using this plugin of code whisperer can select the best one using a combination of the arrow key. So now we will have a demo into the how to use the code whisperer, and then we will move into the next session. So to use the code whisperer, what you need to do is you can log into the Amazon, and for enterprise it has this code whisperer has a price associated with it, but for individuals they can try this code whisperer for free. And just like I explained, the way by which it works, how it works is actually straightforward. As a developer, we will be writing the code in the IDE, and the IDE send the context. It's not just the IDE, it's IDE plus that plugin of the code whisperer will understand the context, and it will send that to the Amazon code whisperer, which is a cloud managed service in the cloud. And then based on the foundation, underlying foundation model, and the capability that is there in the code whisperer managed service, it can do different things. So one of the main highlighted feature of this code whisperer is it can provide code recommendation. So that's quite helpful for the developers. In addition to that, it can also provide security scan. So security is a main concern of every organization. When we write code, we should keep the security considerations in mind as well. Otherwise, these security breaches can incur huge loss for the organization as well. It hampers the reputation of the organization as well. So security is a main concern, and it can provide the security scan. It can also provide other reference tracker, and it can also provide some of the bias avoidance as well. Currently, the code whisperer supports up to 15 programming languages. The list as of this recording streaming is these are some of the main languages which are supported by code whisperer, and also it has first class support for AWS API. So this is a service from AWS itself, so it can understand how to better use the AWS services, and they have optimized this foundation model in such a way that it can provide better recommendation. Then this is a machine learning service. So as you write code, it can understand how you actually write the code and can provide suggestions based on that. This is something I observed while I also worked in that. Initially when I worked, it was quite working in a kind of a different fashion, and as I tried more and more, I was getting more context and more recommendations. So it's like it will learn the way you develop code and then can provide recommendation. So other things mentioned here are all we discussed already. So you can go through this documentation and can understand, but same time I will mention quickly how you can leverage this code whisperer service in your development environment. Many of you already using this Visual Studio Code. So Visual Studio Code, this has support for this code whisperer service. So you can install something like an extension like this. So go to the extension section. So here you can find the extension, and here you can type something like code whisperer. So actually, this is the exact plugin called AWS Toolkit. So it supports this service and also some other service as well. So it supports for Code Whisperer category. So you need to install this one, AWS Toolkit, the latest version. Then once you install that, you will get a option like this, AWS. So here you can click on that and you need to connect with the AWS Builder ID. So Builder ID is different from the way you create a console account in AWS. So this is different one, and as an individual developer you can do this for free, don't need to pay anything. So you can connect with the AWS Builder ID, but there are cases where you might be having an AWS account as well. In that case, you can connect that with the IAM credentials as well, especially for organization who provide this Code Whisperer, they can do that way. So ideally, as an individual developer, you can connect with the AWS Builder ID, and the service is quite free, so you can try it out. So once you install that, the behavior will be like this. So for example, I am going to create a new file, and you can create a text file, and it created a text file as well. Anyway, you can give some extension like .js or CS depending upon the programming language you use. So that's fine. Next, it's mentioning to select a language. So in the language section, you can select the different languages that are supported by the Code Whisperer. The one I am going to select now is JavaScript. So I have selected the JavaScript. I am going to save this as well. So this is a demo JavaScript. Now I'm going to type something like var AWS underscore key equal to just a moment. Yeah. So let's give like this, where AWS underscore access underscore key like this, where AWS underscore access underscore key. So it can automatically fill the rest of the data through recommendation. When I type like this, AWS underscore access underscore key, and it is suggesting to provide something like underscore ID, because it can understand like AWS access key needs an ID as well as a key. So if I am okay with this one, I can simply press on the tab key, where it will select the one which is recommended by the Whisperer service. Next, when I click next one, it is automatically highlighting what I need to provide next. So the line which it is Whisperer is suggesting now, it's a valid one. From the first word, based on the context of how I am entering the data, it can understand what to provide next. So this way, it can provide a lot of helpful suggestions for the developers. Not just limited to JavaScript, it can provide a support for around 15 languages, and the list is also increasing day by day as well. So once I provide the AWS secret and access key, maybe if I am new to the AWS coding, AWS cloud, I may be wondering what to provide next. So here in this case, it is suggesting to provide the region as well. So this way, you can do whatever you like. So it can provide a lot of suggestions. So basically, it uses some sort of data, and it selects the best one based on transformer technology or the underlying foundation model, GPT model. So that model is fully managed by Amazon. As a developer or as a user of this Whisperer service, we don't need to bother anything about that, because it's the Amazon's responsibility to manage all those things, and they will do that. and we can just use this service. So now I have done this. So now I am confused what to do next. Maybe I am writing this JavaScript to upload something to the Amazon S3 bucket. So if you know, the S3 is one of the service in Amazon which can help to store the files. It's an object storage. So I need to upload something to the Amazon S3. So I can provide a command like this. Create a function to upload to S3 bucket. So and return the URLs. Okay, so it's the way by which it works. So when you upload something to the S3 bucket, it has an URL associated with that resource which can help you to connect to that resource later. So this is fine. So I am going to type the tab and click enter. So once you click the enter, you need to wait a moment to get the recommendation, and the Whisperer is suggesting further like a function upload to S3 file bucket ACL and all. So these are some of the parameters of that function. I am happy with that, and then I clicked enter, and now I am waiting for further suggestion from the Amazon, and it provides the entire suggestion. So see, the code you are viewing now is actually JavaScript. So this way it can provide the entire suggestion based on how you want to use the service. So this is one example of how you can use the service. So in this case this is fine, and I have used that. One thing you need to aware of this case is like these GPT models are evolving, and once you interact with that, and once the model gets more mature, it can provide better recommendation. So a word of caution here, like you need to just understand how the Whisperer is returning the data, and you need to just verify that as well. Don't blindly use everything that is recommended by the GPT models. It's not particular to this Whisperer. Whatever GPT models providing suggestions, especially when it has an impact in the production, you need to first evaluate that particular code, and then only you should use. So you need to test it properly. Don't take blindly that everything it is correct, but it can helpful. It can quite helpful, just like a pair programmer who sits with you to help you. We don't usually take whatever full he is suggesting, but we also need to think about whether the code will work properly or not, and then based on that we should proceed. So verify what it is suggesting by the GPT models, and then use that cautiously. So this is the same case with the GPT models as well. Whatever it is suggesting, just verify that. We can't fully trust like an expert person because this is based on the data and the context. So there are places where it can work in a different way. So be cautious on that one. So this is one example of upload to S3. And what about if I want to write a function to get the data from S3 and to display it? So we can try that next. We want to imagine you are writing an application to upload something to S3, and once you upload something, you want to display the entire file from the S3 to the application as well. So in that case, you might need a function to display the data. So see, it's suggesting to delete the function, but we don't want to delete it. But what we want is like create a function to list data from list files from S3 bucket. So let's type and wait whether it's, yeah, it is suggesting to list files from S3. Let's select this. So if you are okay with what Whisperer is suggesting, you can simply hit the tab key. Sometimes Whisperer will show a list of suggestions. So in that case, you can change the list by clicking on that arrow key. You can shuffle the you can change the list by clicking on the arrow key, and you can select the appropriate one. In this case, it provides the right suggestion, and I click enter. So it will take some time to return from there. So see, this is the access key you have provided at the top. So it's because to list files from S3 we need that access key and access ID. So it's automatically used that from the code, and region is also used from the code, and then it gets a list of data from the S3 bucket, and it displays that data there. Returns the data from the function. So you can use this function somewhere and display the data. Maybe it's a front-end application or whatever you are using. And another thing you can interestingly see here is at the beginning when I typed this code, it automatically suggested like process.env.access key ID. So let's say if I am removing this one and I am hard coding something. So this is the key and this is the ID, and let's this be the key. This is a secret key. Now let's see what happens in that case. So it's fine. So far no warning or anything show from there. So let's look on this and run the security scan. So it is actively scanning the file. Let's see whether it is any suggestion it is actually showing there. Okay, actually I didn't selected the rest of the files, so that's why the error came. So let's select it. Okay, fine. Now I think it's fine. Then run the security scan again. Okay, it is scanning the active file. I believe if you completed for one file, 0 issues were found. So I think so far fine, because we are not actually using any valid key or access key here. But I believe that if you use a proper key from Amazon and run this, it will identify that a real key is used inside your code, which is not a good practice, and it's a security violation and we need to remove that. So in this case we have just used a demo word there, so it didn't identify it. So usually it should identify. So that's how it is working. So similar way you can try some other codes as well to see how it looks like, and it works with all technologies, and it supports around 15 languages, but it can provide more better suggestions for the Amazon related services. And this has integration with Visual Studio Code, then JetBrains, and a few other editors as well. As of now, Visual Studio Professional is not supported, but we can hope the support for that will come later. In addition to that, there is a editor in the Amazon Web Service called the Cloud9 that is also supported. So if you go to the website, and if you go to the Amazon console, and if you type something like Cloud9, Cloud9, this is a cloud ID for writing, running and debugging code. This Whisperer has support for this Cloud9 as well. Similarly, Amazon Lambda, which is a serverless function, serverless service from AWS, that also has supported for the Whisperer. So it can, while you write some Lambda code, it can provide the same suggestions like you saw in the Visual Studio Code. So that's how it's working. Then we can go to the slides again, and we can, so hope you understand the concept of one service, one generative model service like the Whisperer here. Then we can go to the next one. Okay, so again back from the demo, and we can move to the next slide. Now, in addition to the Code Whisperer, you can also use some of the other service in Amazon, which is called the SageMaker. So SageMaker is a AI service which you can use in your organization to generate the machine language models from underlying data. In addition to that, SageMaker has also a nice feature like it can provide some jump starts as well. So that means just like we saw some of the templates while we use Word or PowerPoint, and it can quite helpful for our working with that particular software. Similar way, this SageMaker Foundation can suggest you some of the underlying foundation models. So it has support for some of the newer foundation models as well. So that's what you can see in the screen. It has a lot set of the foundation models. So foundation models, as you understand, these are specialized model which can do certain specific tasks, including the GPT model 3 and so on. So that means you can leverage these foundation models through SageMaker to your organization. And one of the very rich feature of this kind of service is that your data remain private and secure within the Amazon VPC cloud. So your domain specific, your company protected data will remain within your Amazon web service and shouldn't go outside. So that's the difference with related to the GPT or the chat GPT application, where if you search something in chat GPT, it will automatically used for its learning and it will go public. So that's not the case with this one. Here the Amazon hosts the foundation models and it uses the underlying foundation models plus your domain specific data, so that combining those two, your this foundation model can provide better suggestion. So that's the one example is what you are viewing on the right side. At the beginning, in the agenda we have seen like there is a concept called prompt engineering, where you can specify something to the these foundation models through this service that you want something. So in this case, the user is mentioning to write a descriptive search in a blog post according to the following details. Blog title is Overcoming Writer's Block, and it is mentioning if we instruct this to the foundation model in the SageMaker, it can work with the help of that foundation model, and it can provide an output like just like you write a paragraph, it can provide some suggestions and later you can alter that as well. So this lies the importance of this generative model. Imagine your organization has a set of advertising models in the past few years, a set of various advertisement which you think quite worked effectively, and you want to use that in your upcoming advertisement as well, but you need that in a different way. So that means you need some creativity, but it should be based on some of the past successful advertisement models as well. So in that case, you can specify your all those as kind of a training data for the SageMaker foundation model, so that it can use that along with the existing foundation model and can provide a new content. It can generate a new content, entirely new content, which your organization can use. And it's actually not any copied content or anything, it's actually generated content. So that's called generative data, and it's not like a condition based, or it's not based on some kind of a fixed evaluation based data. It's actually a new data which is generated from the existing context. So that's how the GPT models are working. So it is quite useful and has a lot of capability. One area is what you can see here. Next area is where if you want to create a song, or if you want to create a video or an image, you can use the help of these generative models, foundation models, and you can generate a data. So that means a lot of creativity. The creativity depends upon how you provide the prompt. So in this case, initially when you provide a prompt, maybe you won't get the exact output from the this foundation model as you expect, but if you tweak the words a little bit, you will get the content changed accordingly. So that means the creativity depend upon how you provide the prompts. So prompt becomes an prompt the proper prompt providing will become an art then. Okay, so I think we can take a break for 5 minutes and we will come back after that. So let's have a break. Welcome back, everyone. So we'll continue the session. Let me share the screen. Okay. 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 We were discussing about the SageMaker Foundation model and how it can help in prompt engineering. Next, we will be looking into some of the applications of this generative AI. One of the application is text generation. That means just like we saw the prompt generation where you can ask GPT models to generate something for you, and the extended version of that text generation is there. So that's why the text generation has many different types. When when you view the demo of the code whisperer, you can understand that GPT can provide suggestions and it can provide code recommendations. That's also another form of text generation. Similar way, if if the GPT models are used from within the AWS SageMaker, and if you supply with some of the training data, domain specific training data, it can generate the organization or domain specific content. So that kind of text generation is there. Then it can used for advertisement, as like we said, based on some past successful advertisement, you can generate a entirely new kind of advertisement as well. Any different areas are there. So text generation has lot of scopes, and summarization, text summarization is another area where you can provide a set of paragraphs and it can summarize the content using this transformer model. So then the game design. So if you want to create some background for the game, those of you who play the online games, you can understand how rich the UI interface, sorry, not the UI interface, how the background looks like, and it's quite kind of a unique way by which each game is developed. So rich set of background trees, the buildings and everything, it differs as the game progresses. So there we need some kind of a generative AI, and it can help to generate these images on the fly, so that the game designers don't have to too much worry about how the design should be like. So the system itself can provide some of the suggestions, and the designers can provide their opinions as well through the prompt generation, where the generative AI uses that for generating the content. So in game design area also there is a scope there. Then industrial design, where if want to create new models based on existing models, there also AI can quite helpful. Then drug design and research, I'm not familiar with that one, but there also it looks like there also some scope for the design and research. Yeah. Then the image generation, so this has a wide scope, like it can even generate images. Then as it progresses, it can even generate a movie as well, based on some of the existing story, recommended training stories and suggestions we provide. So next we are going to look into the text to image or the diffusion models. So different kinds of diffusion models are there, and stable diffusion is one of the quite popular one. So just like a language model can generate text and it can interact with the user, similar way it can generate image models as well. So images can be embedded in the underlying models. So that's called the diffusion models. So how it works is like we initially supplies a lot of sample images to the stable diffusion models. So it's called the training phase, where we supply a set of different images like this. So here you can see 4 different varieties of images, and we will supply that to the stable diffusion training. Then once it understands that training quite effectively, then the system can generate the same different kind of image, entirely new image, a different kind of images from the existing training data. So, and it's based on the text or the prompt we supply. So here on the right hand side, you can see like when the user after the training, once the user prompted the stable diffusion to generate an image of marigold the puppy as a street art, it generated that. So you can try this in Amazon SageMaker. There are models available, image diffusion models available there. I will be going through a demo as well. So once you understand that, you can try it out and then you can provide. So the way by which it works is like this underlying models, foundation models for stable diffusions are hosted by this cloud provider like AWS, and you can actually create an account in AWS, and then you can use, your enterprise can use those underlying models. The thing is like you don't have to manage anything at all. You just need to pay the cost only for whatever you are actually using. So pay as you go kind of a model. So it's a cloud concept, and then you don't need to have any infrastructure or underlying investment for having this kind of training, and you don't need to train the model at all. So the underlying model is there, stable diffusion model is there. You can supply a set of images to that so that it can generate the data accordingly. Next, we look into how actually the stable diffusion works. In the beginning, we understood like how the GPT models can understand user context and then generate the data. Similar way, we are going to understand how this image diffusion works. Next. So the idea is this one. We supply the training image to the stable diffusion model, and the diffusion model will add a bit of noise, and it will learn how to work backwards to the original image. So that means once it's successfully able to get back to the original image, then it will add a bit more noise to the existing image and try the same. So this will continue until it reaches a point where these diffusion models can completely create an image from this noise. So these underlying noise, which you can see on the extreme right side, that is the underlying foundation model for diffusion. So from that, the data will be generated. So in this way, the stable diffusion foundation models will have a lot of underlying noise images, which the system only can understand. But once you provide some prompt to the stable diffusion, it can regenerate the image back. So a bit enhanced version of that is that if you have 2 or 3 more noise images, it can even mix those noises and come back to a different image. So that's how the earlier image, like once let's go back to the earlier slide where we provided some diffusion training data of that dog, and later we mentioned to the system like, I want the photo of a marigold, the puppy, as a 8-bit art. So 8-bit art is a kind of a word which is understood by this diffusion model, and it can generate those kind of images from it. So it's actually the way by which it works is actually showing here. Like from the training data we supplied, it will add more and more noise until it reaches a point where it can come back to the original image from that noise. So that's how it is working. And then next, so these trained models are stored as in the underlying foundation model. So next we will see a demo of the Amazon SageMaker where we can understand these different underlying diffusion models, where it's based on a lot of training, and it's a huge model, and it's hosted in the AWS, so that you can simply opt to let the AWS know that I need a stable diffusion model. You can supply the prompt in the sense like what you want from there, and rest of things will be handled by the managed service SageMaker, and it will generate the diffusion image for you. So this is the diffusion image. So next we will look into some of the other the different way by which it can generate the data. So if you mention to the diffusion model, I need the image of the marigold puppy on a space station, it can provide an image like that. So it's both the this dog's image, marigold's image, as well as the space station image, no models are there within that foundation model, and it can mix that. So this is actually a new content, it's not generated from the existing one, it can generate new one. So even it can generate an 8-bit image from this current image which you are viewing on the right hand side. So that's how it is working. Then the next, the concept of prompt engineering. So we have already seen this in an earlier slide. Like if you provide a context of what you want to the underlying foundation model, and based on the training data and the other data, domain data that you supply, it can generate the data. So this is quite useful for a long set of application, various use cases as well. So the one of the examples are viewing here, like you can mention to the foundation model, like just to behave like an interviewer, so that it can ask some questions based on some existing data. So a lot of use cases are there. The full use case that generative AI applies to can be found on the AWS documentation. You can go through there, and if the prompt engineering or any of these generative AI use cases are applicable to your organization, you can use that in your organization as well. So the benefit, like when the ChatGPT came out, the one of the question that asked in many forums is like whether the ChatGPT data is private or is it public. So the thing is, like it is actually with GPT, the OpenAI will use that data for their training purpose. So of course the data will be public only. But if you use something like this foundation model inside a private cloud like AWS, under a VPC, a virtual private cloud, then the data will be remain there within the AWS and should not go out. So from an organization perspective, this will be helpful for, to keep the privacy of the data, and also to protect the organization assets as well. So that's the benefit of prompt engineering. And another benefit is like, see, the SageMaker application is like a kind of a machine model, machine learning service, where you can train the model based on whatever data you have. But if you try to create a machine language model from scratch, it will take a lot of time, because you need to provide a lot of data first of all, and it takes a lot of time, and the data set also will be a huge. But in the case if you use these foundation models, these are having more training than what your organization can provide, because these are based on some of the existing infrastructure these Amazon and other big giants are using. So the model is more matured, and it has more parameters and more training data. So the more training you provide to the data, it can work better in a particular context. So that means by applying a set of domain specific data on top of those foundation model, you can get better recommendations. So that's the idea. So instead of having the entire machine language model developing from scratch, you can have a kind of a use an existing model. You can reuse an existing model, add some flavors on top of that, like your domain specific, and then you can generate a newer content based on that. And various use cases you can apply there. So the next one is like prompt engineering for training. So if you want to write something or different kinds of documentation, you can develop using the prompt engineering. So it can be used for training purpose as well. Say for example, if you have your organization has a set of training data, you can store that in the underlying S3 storage, which is relatively cheap. Only thing is you need to store that in a particular format that this foundation models or the SageMaker system can understand. So once you agree to that particular format and structure and store the training data there, maybe in a kind of a JSON format, then the SageMaker existing foundation models can use those data, and it can provide whatever kind of generative use cases as your organization like. Maybe it can generate a set of questionnaires, it can generate some kind of a summary, or it can even generate some weekly emails based on that data, and it can send to the respective person. So lot of things can be automated in that way. And also on another way, if your organization has a set of customers, and you can capture all those customer interactions, and the GPT systems can understand those based on your domain data plus the underlying foundation model. You can select a specific foundation model for that purpose, and combining that, it can send you a weekly email of what all things, what all these customers expect, and it can do a follow-up based on that. So a lot of use cases are there. So next one is like where to go from here. So once you understand all these things, then it will be better to try it out on your SageMaker. So I will show you a sample of how you can try using this kind of applications, this kind of generative AI using the AWS. You need a free account in AWS. You can create it. Only thing is you need to be a bit careful, like if you are providing your credit card or anything, it won't get charged until the free tier gets expired, but you need to be a bit cautious on that, so that if you are not careful, then it might get charged. So that only thing you need to be a bit cautious. So once you have an account, then next what you can do is like you can click on the SageMaker, Amazon SageMaker. So this is the machine learning managed service in AWS. Here first you need to create a domain. So domain is a kind of a workspace, just like when you open Visual Studio or Visual Studio Code. Initially you need to set your workspace. Workspace means the context of your application. That means in the case of an IDE, it is a folder. So similar way, we need to set the context of your Amazon. So for that you need to create a domain. So let's select a region. Okay, fine. So why I selected this particular Stockholm is like earlier I have created a domain in that particular area. Domain means a workspace. So this is the workspace that I created. This will take quite a bit of time, like around 5 to 10 minutes. So to avoid that time, I have pre-created this in this particular. So you can create it anywhere as you like. So it doesn't matter. And once you create this a set of underlying file system, like the Amazon file system, and a set of buckets and also set of permissions are configured. So the way by which you can create a domain is simple. You can click the create button, and you can go to the quick setups, and then you need to provide a domain name. So in my case, I have provided like Vishnu SageMaker. Then you have to select an execution role as well, like Amazon SageMaker execution role. So this is the permission which the SageMaker setup is used to connect to other resources. So underlying this SageMaker is going to consume the bucket S3 storage for storing the data, as well as the file system for storing some of the workbook related activities as well, runbook related activities as well. So the machine learning algorithms needs to be written on in Python, and it can be executable on the runbook. So that runbooks are configured there in the file system. So for that purpose, you need to provide these information, and then you can click on the submit. So once you click submit, it will take up to 10 minutes to create a domain for you. And once that domain is created, then you can click on that, and then you can launch the domain. So you can launch the domain in the studio. So studio is like a it's an cloud environment where you can view these jump starts and all. You can get more easily into the machine learning models or foundation models. So you can see some of the foundation models are there. You can copy the code from the foundation model GitHub, and then you can connect to Amazon and connect to the SageMaker API, and you can work on that. But a better, easier approach is like you can once you create a domain, you can open that in the studio. So let's open that in the studio. This will take some time to spin up, just a few minutes, please hold on. So it's opening up the underlying runbooks. Okay, fine. So now the studio is there, and then next what we can do is like we can start some foundation model. Okay, so for that I click on the models. So in the model, this is one of the benefit of using a managed service, because all the quick jump starts are provided by Amazon here, all the machine language models. So for example, if you want to use a demand forecasting based on a time series data, you can use this one. And if you have, if your organization needs an document understanding, and you want to extract the data from different document, or you want to do a summary, you can use this model. So these are some of the models which are there. And what because this is a generative AI based session, we can focus on these foundation models, because this is the interesting topic here for us. There are a lot of other models as well, which are based on natural language and other different algorithms, but we are not we don't need that one for this session. Our focus is to understand about the foundation models, underlying foundation models of generative AI. So this this list is ever changing. So if you check a bit later, it will be different. So as of now, the list are there. Then let's explore all image creation models. So these are all stable diffusion model. As you understand earlier, these stable diffusion models can generate image from text. So we can try that one. Imagine if your organization needs this stable diffusion, what you can do is like you can click on this one. Then it will show a summary of what that model capability is. So this is a stable diffusion model. Then this deploy a pre-trained model and an endpoint. Endpoint means an API, so that you can use from your application. So that means if you are developing an application, and if it can accept a text string, it can generate this underlying model can generate the image for you. So it depends upon how you want. So, and more details about this particular model, you can scroll down and understand. So this is the same way with all the different models out there. We can look into one diffusion model, and as well as one image, one text based model as well, before we winding up. Rest of things you can try it out on your account. I hope this give you an introduction to the generative AI and how to use that in the AWS service. So with that understanding, you can try it on your account as well. So this is one of the image generated by this model. So the sample is like, if someone has provided astronaut on a horse, it will generate like this. But at the same time, I can provide something like astronaut on a horse near a river, then a river image will be shown on the nearby side. So this way it can generate the different context. So let's And what about if you want to have some kind of organization domain data, specific data as well? In that case, you can set those data in a JSON file in the S3 bucket, and then you can configure that from here. So this is the train model data source. So here you can provide the information. So you can browse and provide your S3 bucket. So you can create a bucket, S3 bucket, and you can put a structured data, training data there in that bucket, and then you can connect to connect this machine language model to there, so that this model will understand or learn from those training model. And once you've done that, you can train the model, so that the foundation model will be further customized based on how your organization runs. And this data remains protected inside AWS account and the virtual private network, so it won't goes outside of that. So your organization data remains secure. That's one of the benefit, and same time you will get the benefit of generative AI as well. So let's try to, we are not going to train anything specific here. Let's see how to deploy a model. In case if you want to try the documentation and try this exactly the same way as you see here. So this S3 model belongs to your account. So I have logged in as my account. So same way, if you logged in as your account, you can have access to your specific S3 buckets which you created. So let's deploy that. So once you click on the deploy, this will take a few minutes to get deployed. Let's wait. There is one question like Dilendra has asked, like he's looking for a comparison over transformer model to use an image analysis and CNN. What do you think? What will better perform? So you can use any of the diffusion models inside here in the SageMaker and can try it, and based on how much cost you are incurring and how much fast you are getting that return, then you can use. And also one more thing is, like, there is an upcoming service from AWS coming up called the AWS Bedrock, which is actually a specific service. So this is that service I show you, AWS Bedrock. This is currently in kind of a preview stage. I hope this will have specific model, and this is a managed service, means you can use the API directly and can train the data. And I hope the cost also will be much better than that of the SageMaker, because if you look into the SageMaker, you can understand that it is actually a kind of a it's kind of a machine learning model where you can train the SageMaker and it can generate the machine language model. And one of the advantage there is that this SageMaker has a set of jump starts as well, which you can use for your application. You can customize it. So one of the things that the generative AI and this cloud mentions when it comes to the foundation model is that rather than generating a machine language model from scratch, you can use one of these foundation models and adding a little bit of flavor, like your domain specific flavor on top of that. You can generate unique contents based on that. So that means you can quickly get it more productive. So based on that foundation model, there is an upcoming service coming up, which is called the Amazon Bedrock. Currently, this service is in preview. So if you try on AWS console, you can you can see that on second AWS console. If you search on the AWS console, you can see, like, let's log back in. Bedrock. So currently Bedrock is not available in Europe. Please select another region. So even if I select, I'm not going to select it because one model is currently being spinning up, a diffusion model. But what will happen is, if I select a model, select a region, it will show like it is not available, you are in wait list. So I have provided my email and waiting for that service to get active. So you can also follow the same one, because you need to sign up a form to see for what purpose you are using this thing and all. And one of the advantage of this foundation model is that these are specific foundation models, and much more compact model for specific purpose. So these are the use cases. See, text generation you can use, chatbot, search, image generation, then image summarization, then image analysis, like sentiments analysis also can be understood from this one. So lot of things are there. So that purpose. So in your case, I think if you want to analyze the image, then it's kind of an analysis. So what I would suggest is, like, you can go to this jump starts and check whether any sentiment analysis or image analysis models are there. I haven't looked into that, and you can select on particular one. So you need to try a little bit of check out the documentation, and also check out the documentation of that particular jumpstart as well. Some of the jumpstarts have the playground as well, so you can try it out, and then if it is suitable for you, then you can use that API. So from the application you can connect to this through the API. Right now we are creating that using an interface, and we are trying to see how it works. But in case if you want to use, you can use the API as well. So now the diffusion model, image model, I hope that answered your question. If anything else you can ask, and in case if I know that, I will update it immediately, otherwise I can update you later as well. So this is the jumpstart which is now got active. Then you can click on the open notebook. So once it opened, so this is one of the interesting thing. Like, see, these are Python code, but they have provided enough documentation and everything, so that you can understand from this itself how it is getting working. So here let's look into something. Yeah, let's open it up. Yes, now the notebook is active. So what you can do is like we can run the notebook code one by one. So this is run, this has run, this has run. So let's run all and okay. So let's wait a few minutes for the notebook to run and then let it generate the data. So this is a diffusion model and they have provided the code and everything because it's a jumpstart. And what you can view is like in the payload section you can see astronaut on a horse is what is provided and width has provided like this. So let's see how it is getting generated. So it will take a 1 or 2 minutes to get the image generated. So let's wait. Yeah, so a few of the images are already generated. So this is one image. So the query is like cottage in impressionist style. So let's change to something like we can try cottage in impression style. So let's provide something like a what to say, yeah, let's say sea in a impressionist style, an ocean, large ocean, okay, ocean in impressionist style. Let's see how it looks like. So we have ran that particular line. It will take some time to generate. So this is also generated, another one. And what about the other one? It is getting generated only. So let's see. It's still executing only, I think. Sometimes it will take a few minutes to get complete. Let's see. Let's try we can change something else. So astronaut on a horse. So let's say near a river. Usually it should generate. Some other reason might be. Let's see. Yeah, it's generated. Ocean in impression style. It took some time. See, this is the image. So sometimes you need to adjust the prompt a little bit so that it should work in an effective way. Other images are still getting generated, so it will take time. Some models will perform very fast, some will takes a bit of time. So we can give something other like a dog, two dogs in front of a park. So let's see how it comes. Yeah, on a horse. Still coming up only. Yeah, see, two dogs in front of a park. It is generated. So, yeah, it will generate, but it's taking some time. So, this is one of the uh, smallest machine that I selected for generating this diffusion model. So that's why it took this much of time. The reason is like it will consume money, so I was a bit cautious to select the lowest one. So if you select the correct one, it will generate in a more quicker fashion. So see, you can see the dog. So the thing is like once you have this things in place, you can also use an API to connect from your application and generate it. So this is one example of a model. Then let's look into one of the other model as well. We can close this one. Let's see, the other one is also, yeah, other one is also generated. Astronaut on a horse near a river. So it's automatically generated based from the diffusion model. Another one which we have provided is yeah, astronaut on a horse on a river. So that also got generated. Then yeah, let's try some other kind of a model and see how it goes. Let's see the models launched jump starts now. Let's see whether any, yeah, model endpoints, these are the one which we used. Let's delete this one, because once you used the diffusion or underlying foundation model, make sure to delete this one. So you can ignore this one. This is a the thing is like underlying resources are getting deleted, so just a warning is what displaying. So you can ignore this one, that is fine. Then let's look into some other kind of jump start as well to see how it goes like. So let's look into the foundation model here. English data, foundation model, image generation. Yeah, these are all text generation models. So let's look into some of the text generation model. T-line on summary. Then yeah, GPT-2 text-based model. So this is actually GPT-2 which is used here. GPT-3 is coming up soon. GPT-2 model, here the advantage using inside the SageMaker Studio is that you can customize it with your domain specific information as well, which is not possible with the other one. So you can deploy this model now, and let's see how it works. So it's going to start the endpoint. So while it is getting generated, we can go back to the slides and have a quick rewind of what all things we have discussed. So we can quickly go through the slides once again to understand the different areas that we have covered from beginning. So that's a summary. So let's let the diffusion model start. So these are some of the diffusion models that are generated from the prompt. It's using the stable diffusion v2 on Amazon SageMaker. So the machine that you are selecting for this running this notebook and the underlying foundation model, it matters. So it matters both the cost as well as the performance. So select the right one accordingly. Next one is like we have understood what is generative AI. We understood the roadmap to generative AI, like where it started from the simple word embeddings like this, and the relation understand between words in a two-dimensional way, to word to vector, and then to natural language processing, which is being used by Alexa. And it was quite useful long back to summarize the data, question answering, sentiment analysis, speech language understanding, and so on. So one of the question with Dilendra asked is regarding how to use which one for sentiment analysis or image analysis. You can use existing image analysis algorithm services, specific services inside the Amazon web services, or you can try out the upcoming Bedrock as well. And if those are two are not sufficient, then you can try out the Amazon SageMaker model as well to see how it fits. So first look into image analysis. Specific services exist within the AWS or cloud, so that you can use that first, because the managed services are the better to use. And from the developer perspective also, you can simply use that data, use that API and use it in your system. And then you can go look into some other options like the upcoming Bedrock. So in case if you are looking for the Bedrock, then better to have the better to add that in the wait list, so that you will get a quick preview of how it looks like when it gets released in soon. So it's currently accessible only to those who requested for that. That will soon change and will be publicly available. So the next is like the word embeddings to do predictions. Predictions can also be think of like as a kind of an intelligence, where it can understand the context and do the next word. And the RNN is the one approach which was used earlier, but it consumes a lot of memory. It can predict up to a level, but it's not as much effective as transformers. Transformers are based on the concept of parallel processing, and also it requires attention as well. So to run these GPT models, it requires some efficient parallel processing system as well. So that is why it is more better performing in cloud environment, because if you host these application, it will take a lot of time. Then with the transformer based networks, you can predict the context and the next words in a much better fashion. And the newer GPT models are coming up. The Bloom is currently there, GPT is there, and then the concept of this underlying foundation model, much specialized models which we are using in systems like a Code Whisperer and SageMaker. In SageMaker, you have the provision to create the foundation models from the jumpstart, and you can add custom data as well, and you can have different domain specific or enterprise specific areas where you can use that. And then we look into the concept of stable diffusion, where we understood how we train a stable diffusion model. The idea is simple, like it's simply creating the model by adding a noise, and it goes back to the previous image from those noise. So the underlying noise is what the foundation used in the diffusion model, so that it can generate various kinds of data, and it can generate based on the prompt which we are mentioning. So prompt engineering is also another one approach which is currently quite common, where you can provide a context and it can provide details. So this is on application type of example it is displaying here, but it can apply to any area. Like if you have a background service which can contact this foundation model and can generate some summary and store in DB, that can be used later as well. So similar way, a lot of use cases are there. Then we looked into the Amazon specific SageMaker, and also the upcoming Bedrock as well. Bedrock, the interesting thing is like it's a foundation model, so it is specific models for doing specific task, but we'll try to add in the waiting list. So now the endpoint status is now ready. So let's open the notebook. Okay, so we can try running the. So this is kind of a prediction where when you provide a text, initial text, it will automatically generate the rest of the text. So let's go to here and let's wait. So now it is getting generated quite fast. So as far as I am concerned, so this is the text which we have provided to the foundation model. Rest of the thing foundation model generated. So text is like, just say that I have not paid any attention to the fact that I have never seen a large amount of money being generated for this purpose, or it can handle. So this is based on the foundation model data which it got trained. But if you provide some specific kind of a training information from your S3 bucket, it will perform accordingly. Let's, for fun, we can provide something like can you tell about the movie Predestination? Or we can alter it. I am going to tell about the movie Predestination, and let's see how it looks like. Try. So let's wait. So it's generated some context, but the thing is, the better context you can provide, it can carry some different things. So of the MIC, what was the first thing you noticed when you saw the movie? So it's still better. So this is the way by which it is performing. These foundation models are performing. Each foundation model will perform in a different way. So you can try different foundation models like this, and once you try the models, then make sure that it gets deleted, because this have an associated charge underneath charge there. So you can delete this one. So I think we have covered enough in the session, and rest of the things you can go through the documentation of the SageMaker and the Bedrock, and you can understand more about the foundation models and how it can help. And also there are a lot of documentation as well, so I will share you the documentation. So if you want to try the Code Whisperer, you can try it on your Visual Studio Code or the JetBeans, as well as the Cloud9 as well. I will share the link here in the live chat, so that you can check it up. And then also we do have a documentation related to Bedrock that also will share here. Next thing is like there are AWS specific Jumpstart specific details are there. So these are some of the Jumpstart specific documentation which you can read and understand how you can generate these images using the SageMaker. And it also mentions the way by which how you can view this through the Studio UI. So right now in the demo, in this session, we have seen the Studio UI, but keep in mind that you can also programmatically interact with the SageMaker SDK, and you can use a training as well there. And do check out some of these models have playground as well, which is sometimes available, that you can use for checking out whether a particular model is suitable for yours or not. So I will share this link as well. If you scroll down, you can see a lot of other jumpstarts as well, like say for example, run text generation with Bloom and GPT model. Also the Alexa, the underlying foundation model which is used in Alexa system, that Amazon Alexa, that is also available from the SageMaker, so that you can use that same foundation model for your application as well. Then run image segmentation, then run text classification, and different other things are there. So I will share this link as well. do bookmark this, and you will get more details about how to use the service. So thank you very much for spending your valuable time listening to this session. And there will be more sessions coming up in the YouTube channel as well as in the podcast. And also the recording is also available from the YouTube channel, so feel free to listen or watch at any time as you like. And also there is a group called coding cloud computing coding talks on Meetup, where you can look into those specific upcoming sessions as well. I'm planning to conduct more sessions on the different AWS services because I was a bit busy last few months and not got much time to take these sessions, but in the upcoming days I will be planning to have more sessions. So thank you very much for your time attending the session. Have a great evening and weekend as well. Thank you.